Recorded live from the Engine Room in Broad Ripple, this is the Voices of Indy podcast hosted by Josh Gillespie. Voices of Indy is a show dedicated to giving you the opportunity to know the musical, visual, and theatrical arts of Indianapolis, Indiana. This week's guests are a couple of great guys, even though they do sad dad rock, with a hint of shoegaze. Scotch Swango, Jay Druba of November Swim Club. Guys, we've been trying to have you on since May. We finally got you.
We're excited to be here.
Yeah.
It's been a road.
Great to finally make it here. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. I'm thrilled to have you guys on. You have your own unique sound that we've done a show together.
Yeah.
At the Melody.
That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. You guys put on a great show, and you've even put that show out as a live album.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah. That was an impromptu decision, but
yeah,
it was needed.
It was a good experience, though. It was a fun show.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely, it was a fun show. So first, before we get started into the deep dive of November Swim Club, give us a basic overview. Who are you guys, and like how would you define yourselves? I guess. Don't let people define you. How do you define yourselves?
You want to go?
Sure.
You want to say something?
Yeah, I'll probably screw it up. Yeah, so Scotch and I have been friends for a long time. We went to school together at Franklin College. Spent a lot of time there running cross country and track. We always sort of did our own thing musically in college, I think. Like I played with different people. Brandon and I actually played together a little bit. And then after school, kind of, life happens. You start a family and jobs and all that kind of stuff. And I actually moved away. Just moved back to the area about a year ago, and Scotch at the time had been, writing music and had recorded some of his own stuff at home, and we just decided kind of let's make a go at this and see what happens. So I went out and hadn't played drums in a while, but I went out and bought a kit, set up in my basement in Fishers, and here we are. And I think our take on this is just sort of let's have as much fun as we can. If we can play some live shows here and there, that's great. But we're in it just for the sort of the fun of it, the experience, and the camaraderie with people like you, the other bands that we played with. That's been, I think, the most surprising and the most sort of rewarding part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, exactly. Scotch, how would you define November Swim Club?
I think that's definitely like how we got here. At this point, from like a stylistic perspective, I think the first album we put out was just really me in my bedroom, making up some things and.
You really Dave Grohl'd that thing, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's not bring him down.
But you played everything. I mean, it was you.
Well, yeah, the drums were tracks, but everything else, I played. And then and so that was just kind of like, gosh, COVID sucks, and we're stuck in our house, and I don't know, I've got some thoughts. Let me see what they sound like in the form of a song. But then from there, it's like together. Once we started playing together, it's like. The style quickly kind of shifted and changed. It's like, we need to figure out, but like we quickly realized like we are not together what that album was, and so our music is quickly shifted.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting that you bring that up because seeing you live, one is an experience. It truly is. You have a lot of effects going on, not just sound effects, but visual effects going on as well. So your whole set is kind of like a feast for the senses.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So what kind of led to that, like the transition? Because we say sad dad rock kind of jokingly, although it kind of is. I mean, we're all dads here, so and this is how we get our outlet. But you kind of are leaning more heavily into the shoegaze. Is that an unfair or more of an accurate assessment?
I hope that's an accurate assessment. In my mind, musically, like with the guitar, that's what I'm trying to do more and more of. And every time I come over to Jay's house for rehearsal and have a new pedal to put on my board, he rolls his eyes and makes fun of me for it. But
the drummers always make fun of the guitars with their pedals.
You can't get the sound without enough I got to keep adding pedals.
You need 6 reverb pedals. At least.
Let's not forget all the delays, too.
That's right.
Sure,
Just stack them and stack them.
Yeah.
So I hope that like a shoegaze angle, like that people feel that, hear that. I wouldn't call us a shoegaze band by any means. I think especially vocally, I don't do what typically you would hear in a shoegaze band.
Your vocals aren't buried.
They're not buried. No. And they're also a little more monotonous in sound, like a little just more straightforward and not as dreamy. Because I just can't. And it's just my, I stay where I can, right?
Yeah.
But I hope musically, like the structure of the sound, the way the sound the way the song plays feels like, oh yeah, there's some influence from shoegaze there.
Yeah, well, I remember when I saw you guys live that one of the, I can't remember which track it was that you played, but I was like, this is really giving me a Jesus and Mary Chain vibe.
Yeah.
And you were like, who are they?
Yeah.
And I was like, what? How?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I think we've heard a few times like, oh, this kind of sounds like blank, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've always just like sort of tried to do our own thing. Scotch had this, this album that he had recorded, and then when I came into the picture, I intentionally didn't go off of that when we were adding percussion and we started adding bass to stuff. I'm like, let's just, what would we do if we started from scratch? And let's just make it our own thing. And I don't think, at least for me, and I think Scotch is probably the same way, like we don't necessarily have a sound in mind going into a song.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a feel and a thought. Let's like flesh this out and kind of see what it ends up as, right? And
I dig that. Yeah.
That general style is where we end up, but it's not like we should try to sound like this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of, let's just tinker until we find something we like and let's roll with it.
Yeah. Well, then, who would you say your influences have been? I mean, to this point, because I mean, if you're clearly it wasn't shoegazy on the first album.
It was not at all.
Not at all. So, I mean, outside of, the pandemic and other things, like, what was the inspiration, whether it was musically or lyrically, what was going on around you that kind of inspired the songs?
Yeah.
That bore the fruit of the first album.
So the first album was unique. I think if I were to, we're writing music now.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Name of the first album.
Stationary Motion.
That's right.
Yes. Stationary Motion. That song was, or that album was heavily influenced by the pandemic, right? Of like being locked in and forced to reckon with your own mental health over a period that you probably haven't. I think it was a fairly universal experience for a lot of people, right? And so I think that there are songs influenced from childhood there. There are songs influenced from just that year of being there. But I think everything was very experiential. Everything was influenced by very experiential internal feelings.
Yeah.
That were not necessarily tied so much to like actual events, of more just like processing life.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's hard to like pinpoint like that. There's a couple songs like that's that or that's that.
Yeah.
But probably 10 out of those 12 songs are just like me, just like got this thought that is like, I realized like I've probably thought about that a lot over the last 15 years, but not really realized it until this year. And so let me process that out.
It's amazing how first albums really kind of do that. It's like it is the essence of just spilling your guts out of now, however long it's been, whether you're a teenage band, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, like me, late 30s when the first album came out. But yeah, it's just like this well of experience is finally just finding its way out. All these
pent-up thoughts and feelings and everything.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's Stationary Motion.
That was, and it was one of those things. Once that levee breaks, right? Like I wrote all 12 of those songs like very quickly.
Oh wow, really?
Real quick, and it was self-recorded in my house. Like it wasn't, like a certain level of quality production by myself there. So it's that whole process was like 7 months, and everything was written and recorded and done.
Yeah.
And so it was a quick little turnaround, and now it's like a very different, I think, process for us now of like what we're trying to do and what we're trying to write now.
Yeah, it's if you've heard the story of the Postal Service, the band, right? They were sort of sending stuff. I was living in Tampa at the time, and he was sending me it was like an acoustic guitar and vocals, right? Like, what do you think of this? And I would just say that, it's cool. You should change this line or whatever. You should add some drums, and just more giving advice and opinions and things like that. And now it's more like in person, right? He's bringing an idea into the room, and I'm saying, okay, well, what if we did this? What if we add that?
It's so much better.
It's much more collaborative than it used to be, right?
Yeah.
Well, you being in the area certainly helps,
right?
Yeah,
right.
And physically in the band.
Well, it's much more fruitful, right? I mean, playing with each other in the same room, like working out these songs, versus just like, here's a file, and he sent back, here's my thoughts on that file.
Yeah.
Here's the revision on that file. Here, it's just it's a little more stale, right? That way.
No, yeah.
So it's a lot more fun now.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, did you guys ever talk on the phone, like, in terms of, how you would go about, processing that first album? Again, I know it's primarily Scotch, but I mean, with the input that you had, I mean, were there times when, you get the file and you're like, okay, I hear where he's going, but I need this explained a little bit further.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I think we had some conversations where I was like, I don't get this, or I don't understand this part of it, or you should do this differently. But yeah, I mean, that album was 99% Scotch, right? And just sort of, I think, tinkering and trying different stuff.
I mean, the big thing, there's like lyrically is always the hardest part for me to write.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I get that. Yes, absolutely.
Because it has to be right.
Mm-hmm.
I can melodically with chord progressions or lead notes. It's like, that's all fluctuate. You can fluctuate that here to there and play it different at different times. But the lyrics have to be on point when I write. And so I think like that process of writing that first album was more difficult because it felt like it was just more stale writing, and so the lyrics I felt like were harder to get to where I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
But now, like playing together, it's like I just if he's drumming a certain way, or he'll play bass when we like put down tracks, he'll play, and that will like influence how I want to sing this line, and it just makes the lyrics come alive in a different way that I feel like I couldn't get on my own with that first album.
That kind of reminds me of something that. So I'm a huge fan of Rush.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a documentary that I saw of them on when they did their Snakes and Arrows album. And granted, they were talking about some older stuff, but just the way that Neil would write wouldn't necessarily jive with the way that Geddy would sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the way that Geddy would have to work it was that he would have to listen to the riff that Neil would be playing, or kind of work off of Alex. But I mean, it's interesting to hear them talk about that style of songwriting, but then how it goes into like sometimes the songwriting doesn't fit the lyrical meter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Until you work with the drums.
Right.
Yeah,
until you introduce something else. It's like, oh, it clicks. Like, there it is. Like, that's how I need to phrase it this way. Or, let's take out this syllable and change these words to make it fit.
Yeah, I think it's been good, too. There's certainly our Venn diagram in taste of music. There's a lot of overlap. But there's also, like, I'll listen to pop punk and stuff like that, right? That Scotch I don't think really got into. And I think the other end of his spectrum is very different from the stuff I listen to. So I think there's always this, like, pulling in different directions sometimes, where like I want to play the sort of hard and fast drums sometimes when it doesn't fit the song, right? And so there's always this like, well, do we bend this guitar melody or the song to fit that or that vibe, or do we do something totally different on the drums, right? So that's been interesting too. There's some give and take there. I feel like that has made the music better and probably more diverse too from song to song. There's enough variance that at least I feel like, and I hope it doesn't all sound the same because of that.
No, it definitely doesn't sound all the same. I mean, from seeing you guys live, and I think you played, 9 songs, I believe, at the Melody Show?
Something like that.
Yeah, maybe 8, but yeah.
Yeah,
right
8 or 9, but
yeah,
only like 1 or 2 of them were from the first album. Everything
it
was
new.
Yeah. And, I mean, that had to be really exciting in some ways.
Yeah.
To kind of seeing yourselves gel as a band and working out these new songs, especially in a live scenario.
Yeah.
You guys were feeding off each other really well.
Yeah.
I think even the songs from the original album too, they sound different now.
Yeah, they sound very different.
Like we always play the East Side. That's one of our favorites. That was on the original album, but it sounds quite a bit different from the original recording. Just the way we play it now.
Yeah.
And again, Scotch I think was tracking drum loops and stuff like that, and everything was done at home. And so now we've got some other stuff that we can do live and do things a little differently, which gives us better flexibility.
Yeah.
So even the original stuff, it sounds different, I think.
Yeah, but I mean the drums are different on that. The guitar is very clean on the original recording.
Yeah.
And now it's like dirty with a lot of trim just floating through it, and
nice.
So it's just like it feels like a completely different. Like if I go back and listen to those, because the ones on the live recording and the ones on the first album, if I go back and listen to like those, it's like it's almost not the same song. I mean, the lyrics are the same.
Yeah.
The key's the same. but it sounds completely different.
Very different, yeah.
Have you thought about re-recording the first album?
There are some songs that I would re-record off of it. I don't think I have a desire to do like the whole album.
Sure.
Yeah.
But there are, I mean, the East Side, I would love to do like another like proper recording of that song.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, we both enjoy playing that one almost as much as anything else.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Sure.
It's just like to play it is a lot of fun one.
Yeah.
You start off the album really well. I love the Come Down.
Oh, yeah. That song, it like, you know, it tends to get like the most traction out of like, you know, Spotify streams or whatever, which, you know, all 7 of them go to that song.
Yeah.
You know, all 7 streams for 1 week. But
I know the feeling well. I know what you mean.
Hey, 4 people really like that song this week. Thank you, you 4 people.
That's right.
But like I would like to take that song and like adapt it.
Yeah.
I want to take there's Good Intentions and adapt that one to be like, okay, I like the lyrics on both of those songs, but let's think through like how we make it sound like us instead of like me in
like
my
Scotch.
room by myself.
Yeah,
that isn't what I want anymore.
But it's funny, when we first started playing those 2 songs, I think were 2 of the first ones that we started.
We did.
I was like, all right, let me learn these. Let's play these together. And then they quickly fell off, and we never played them live. We never, right?
Yeah.
We just sort of moved on. Yeah, it would be fun to go back to those maybe and play them, because we rehearsed those a few times, but I think we were at that point, it was so early on, we were trying to make it sound like the album. Right?
It just wasn't working.
As opposed to Scotch's point of like, well, let's let these evolve organically and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's probably worth revisiting those at some point.
I think we should.
See what we can do.
Yeah. Now, Scotch, what was it like for you to go from, you know, doing an album all by yourself? And I ask this because I've been in the same situation.
Yeah.
Of doing an album pretty much by yourself to now you're working on something that is, you know, larger in scope because you have Jay as part of the band.
Yeah.
What's that like for you?
Oh, I mean, it's much more rewarding. I mean, it's much more enjoyable. I mean, one, it's not my house, right? We go to his house. So like, I get out of the house. It's like, you know, because
it's an event.
Where I recorded that first album was in my office where I work. So I'm working all day in there, and then it's just like the creativity was like stale.
I hear
you know
that.
What I mean? It's the same 4 walls every single time, and it's not like conducive to like. I mean, it's like my work office. It's not like this like cool space to like write music and you know. So like going there, it's like we have our own space set up in his basement, and it's you know it's just got the right vibe. It's much more engaging and rewarding, I think, to like work together. And also, it's just fun to like have something that someone else is enjoying playing, and it's like, you know, I enjoy playing this, but okay, that's you know, but it's cool to be like, oh, we enjoy the way this song is coming together.
Yeah.
And just the give and take and the feedback to each other is a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's also something to be said for just the sort of creative process with another person and just jamming on it, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it was, again, you're literally sending files back and forth, and it's hard to sit in a room and say like, well, what if we did this, and then record it and send it, wait 3 days, and you know, like when you can iterate like that in person and collaborate on stuff, it's I mean, I would agree with you. Seems much more rewarding when you can actually be in the room with people and work through something together and just see where it goes.
Yeah, we've had a couple songs lately that we've written where we're just sitting in there and we'd be messing with something in the rehearsal space, you know, hooking up, okay, let's run this through our in-ears and, you know, test this out or whatever. And I'll just be noodling on my guitar waiting for him to do that. I'm like, oh, I kind of like that. That could be something. And so it's like he just sits down and starts drumming. I start doing that. It's like, and then boom, a week later, we've got the structure of a song that was just totally impromptu.
Yeah.
And that never happened before, you know, I mean.
Exactly.
So like that's fun. Like he'll just be playing a beat. I'm like, hey, keep that going. Like, hold on, let me see if I can figure something out to play to that.
I think, we've been playing this new song called Jenny's Grave. That comes to mind. That came together so quickly. Normally, Scotch comes with a riff and some lyrics that are, you know, maybe not quite finished, but most of the way there, and it evolves over time. That song, I think you played that, and I just played a beat, and I don't think it's changed.
It hasn't.
Like we literally played through that song. I was like, that was cool. We should do that.
That's musical magic.
It was. It was on the spot.
It just sort of worked.
I had no guitar for that either. Like that riff, I just made up. Like I was sitting. That's one where I was just like, duh, 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 and it's just like this walk down bass line.
Right.
And then you started drumming. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but this is something. It's just too much fun. It's super simple, but it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And then we just tons of effects, and then we let it go.
Does it typically happen for you that you come up with the song first when you're writing music, or do you do the lyrics first? I mean, I know that you said lyrics tend to be a little bit harder, but I mean, at the same time, and that, trust me, that's something that I absolutely get, because for me, the music comes first.
Yeah. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's the lyrics first.
Really?
Because I have a hard time adapting my lyrics to fit a song.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. Okay,
because I want the lyrics to be what they are, and if I have a melody and I can't figure out how to say what I want to say into that melody, then it's like, well, now I've got to rewrite the whole melody to fit the, like, I'm gonna throw the music away before I throw the lyrics away, and so I just end up writing the lyrics first.
Wow.
And then I figure out, okay, well, this is kind of how I'm gonna make this work into a song.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's fascinating.
And I mean, there's times where I take the I'm like, we'll be singing, trying to rehearse and figure this out, and like, I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to phrase this.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have to like work it. He's like, well, what if I stop? You know, what if I do this?
Well,
it's like,
that strumming pattern doesn't work. It sounds
all the time. All the time. He's like, I don't know.
I don't know what you're doing there. It's not 4/4 time.
Please, syllables out of your mouth.
Please
and what's
stop.
happening on the guitar.
Please stop doing that.
Yeah, well, maybe he's trying to get into some progressive stuff here that's really going to throw you off.
I think
get some 12/8.
Yeah, half the challenge is I'm not good enough to like match what he's doing. So I'm like, you got to dumb this down.
I don't think it's that.
We got to figure this out.
I don't think it's that. I think it's that I am just. It's just weird at times.
Yeah.
I don't think it's matter. Like, it's just weird. It's like, that just doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't.
Right.
But does it have to?
Right.
Like, that's kind of a thing. It's like, we say that a lot. Like, I don't know if this is like what you should do or the normal way.
Musically, this doesn't make sense.
But who cares?
But how can we work with that and and stay in time together, right? That's the challenge, right? That's right.
Yeah. When we recorded, so we just recorded a single coming out 9/1. That's my plug. 9/1.
Name of the song?
Morristown, Indiana.
Okay.
And when we recorded that, we went into the studio and we had not played it to like a click ourselves yet. Like, we had just been playing it live. Yeah. And we went in to record it, and like we quickly realized, without even like really thinking through it much, because we just knew how we played it. We hadn't thought through it, but it changes time signature, like at the end of the chorus for just like a measure. Yeah. And so when we put down a 4/4 click to it, we got to that part where like, what just happened?
How do I play along
off? And we just realized, like, shoot, like we didn't even think through it, but it's just the way that I phrased the lyrics and the way you play the drums to stay with that. It changes time signature for a measure, and we just
very cool. I want to say
it was fun because like we realized it way after we should have realized. No, you know what I mean?
During the process of recording.
It's like, well, now it took us a few times to try to figure out how to do that to a click.
Totally. And it's one of those where, like, the song, I think we're both really happy with it. Can't wait for people to hear it in a couple of weeks, and really happy with the way it turned out. And that's one where if we tried to force it back into this box of like, okay, well, this needs to be 4/4 all the way through, we would have lost a lot, I think, from the chorus of that song. So, it's sort of just being okay with, like, musically this doesn't make sense, maybe. This isn't something we should do, but it's cool and we really like it, so we're going to do it. You know, I think, like, there's a lot of that goes on just in the writing process. I play an electronic drum kit, and you show up at gigs and people are like, what is that? What are you plugging into? It's like, I've got the drum mics ready to go. I'm like, no, we're doing this because I want reverb on this song and I want a different snare on this song. And
it gives you that flexibility.
And you just don't see people show up at a show with an electronic kit, and it takes me forever to set it up, and it's a pain in the ass, but part of my language.
No, it's okay.
But
we're free here.
It's sort of, it's I think gives us a unique vibe that we're okay being a little different. You know?
Yeah.
No, you need to have that kind of mentality going into it, because that adds to the aura of what you're doing and to the. I mean, it's your art that you're making.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you need the tools that you have, and your paintbrush happens to be an electronic kit. Right. Again, the great professor Neil Peart, he didn't shy away from electronic drums.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, he's my top echelon drummer.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you couldn't tell.
Yeah. He's fantastic.
But yeah, I remember seeing that, like, when you came in, you were setting up the kit. I mean, it's like, and it does kind of take a little bit of time, because so we came on first that night at the Melody, and we knew we had to be done by 8:45.
Yes.
And we were done by 8:45 and cleared off in less than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's here comes the kit.
Yeah.
And you're like screwing it in, plugging it in.
Yeah.
But once you finally get going, though, yeah, you do get those different snare sounds that you're looking for. You get the reverb that you're looking for that you can't necessarily reproduce
Sure.
Right.
with a regular kit.
Yeah. Or you don't
in
want the
in a
same
live
thing on
situation.
every song.
Yeah.
Right? You don't,
Yeah, and I think
we had a couple songs with like super heavy reverb on the drums.
Yes.
And
yeah,
it's like you can't have that on every song. It's just
No,
too
you
much.
can't. Yeah.
You know, but it works for middle of the set to shift it up.
Yeah, I mean that was the motivation behind it, right? Well, number one, we're playing in my house. I got little kids. We play at night, so
Yeah.
like I can go down there by
yeah.
myself and play. So there's that whole benefit, right? But really, I think it was the experimentation. Like I want to have access to 15 different drum kits at any given moment, right? And so it's a little bit of a bear to set up and tear down, but I think it's worth it because, to his point, like the East Side is just dripping with reverb on the drums, and it really fills out that song and sounds really cool. There's other that are more snappy and punchy, and you don't want that, right? And I don't think we ever wanted like a totally unique kit. Like we play the same kit on several songs, so there's a commonality, and a lot of times it's the same instrument, the same snare. It just has a different effect on it, right?
Yeah.
So you can tell it's sort of similar. So I don't think we wanted a totally different sound song to song,
Right.
but we wanted the flexibility to say like, I want a different crash in this song, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to go buy 5 different cymbals, right? So we can fine tune and really make the drums match the song in a way that you really couldn't do easily with an acoustic kit. So
No, that's true. No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. And so when I had the question there, and now it has just escaped me. No, it was just like that. So because I was thinking, I was like, yes, I have it here. But I'm trying to get back to it in terms of the ability to have different sounds. Like you guys are a 2-piece right now.
Yeah.
So do you have to find yourself when you play live, where's the bass line coming in? Do you have a loop that you play on from the drums, or is there something that you're playing with the different pedals? Because I feel, is this something that you guys kind of go back and forth with, or will there eventually be a bass player?
Well, if you know a bass player, if you happen to be a bass player,
I think, honestly, we are more than open to like bringing on other people, the right people. But again, this kind of goes back to the reason we're doing this. To your point, it's our art, it's his art, right? And we want to do this for ourselves. And so we're not willing to sacrifice the vibe and the camaraderie.
Right.
I think
we talk about this a lot.
Well, I just know that you can get a lot of stuff out of. I mean, you can get pretty much any instrument out of an electronic kit these days.
So we do have some effects on the kit that I can trigger. There's like a church bell in one song that I can trigger that has nothing to do with traditional percussion, but and then we play with a lot of backing tracks. So we'll go down and we'll record the bass line, we'll record a secondary guitar, things like that, backing vocals sometimes. And so we play with in-ear monitors, and we've got a click track to make sure we stay on time with the backing tracks. So when we sit,
that's understandable.
We sit down, I've got a laptop, and I'll hit play, and in our ears we hear a click and we hear a count in, and then we start playing with that. And so the bass just comes in when it's supposed to.
Nice.
The secondary guitar comes in when it's supposed to, and as long as we stay on that click track, then it all works out. So it sounds, when we play live, it sounds like a full band. It sounds much more full than just 2 people.
I don't know. I've seen the Black Keys. That's a pretty full band.
Right. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're
right.
That's what we're doing. When we first started, and I was so opposed to like the backing tracks and the click. I'm like, I don't want the click in my ear. I think we both.
It takes some getting used to.
And it feels, starting off, it felt hard to like enjoy the performance. When I'm, you know what I mean? Because you're listening to the click and you're like, okay,
it's hard to get into it.
But now it's like we've done it so many times that I feel like if you give me just the first 4 of that, we can probably turn it off and play it, because it's just like it's so ingrained at this point that I don't listen to the click as much. I don't hear it so much anymore.
There's a band that I had on the show about a year ago. I had the lead singer on by the name of Boyhood Bravery, and Luke Livingston, who is kind of like the face of Boyhood Bravery, he was telling me that he was working on some new tracks that were working on a lot of MIDI. And when it's a little bit more difficult to play that live, because again, you're working with a click track, and once you go off, it's a train wreck.
You're toast.
You got to be able to adapt quickly. Which we've had. We've had like live performance. Our clicks just go out.
No.
Like middle of the song,
That's always the risk, right? When you rely on a technology like that. We had the software that we play that music through just got over. We played an outdoor show a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
The computer got really hot.
It's like 96 degrees out.
Yeah, we were like mid 90s. It was
Mm-hmm.
very hot, and I think the computer overheated and it couldn't process the sound, so it just stopped in the middle of a song. And so we played the second half of that song, just the two of us, and it was
fine.
It is what it is. You don't have a choice
Sure,
at that point.
yeah.
But yeah, it certainly it takes some getting used to. And when we first started playing with that track, we would be rehearsing, and we would get to the second verse. I'm like, hold on, we came out of the chorus wrong. We're off this. We got to figure this out. But to Scotch's point, once you start adding the other tracks, the other guitar, and then you can listen for the bass line, right? That kind of keeps you in time. So even if you lose the click,
you got the rest of the band.
You can
got a
still
normal
listen
band.
to the other stuff,
You
right?
just got the normal band. Everyone's there together at that point.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different animal because when you're playing with musicians, you can all adapt to each other, and if somebody gets off, you can find each other and get. The tracks don't care if you.
Yeah, exactly.
Tracks don't care if you get fast or slow.
Very unforgiving.
You got to get back to the tracks. So it does take it's a different mindset. It takes a little bit of practice, but I think we found that it's worth it just to give that full band sound with it, to have the bass and in some cases a second rhythm guitar just to make it sound the way we want it to sound.
Yeah.
When we're playing live with just the two of us.
Yeah, no.
Part of it too. I mean, the very first song we tracked was "It Wasn't Our Fault." Right, that's the very first one that we tracked, and that's because it has like this big outro, and I really just wanted to play some lead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, with one guitar, I'm just playing rhythm all the time.
Yeah.
It's like I really wanted to play some lead, so we tracked backing guitar so that I could play lead, and it didn't sound so empty because lead with just drums, it just didn't,
Yeah.
But that was like the first one. It's like, well, if we're doing it for one, at that point it's just as easy to build this out. So we've slowly just build them out. So now like our live set feels like a full band and not just a duo anymore.
Yeah, the first couple of shows we played, I think we had a couple of songs with tracks and then the rest without, right? And then we slowly over time we've added to our regular songs that we play, we've added backing tracks, and now I think they're all filled out.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, get that again with the kind of sound of music that you guys play, you need to have like that.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be present there.
Totally.
That was my big thing. Is like it always just felt a little too thin when it was just the two of us. I mean, it was fun.
Yeah.
And in some ways more fun because I'll sit there and I'll be speeding up the tempo and Drew was looking at me like, "Hey man, I'm here." But we're not there,
But to my point earlier, we can stay together. Like like Scotch is excited. I just got to pick up the tempo a little bit.
Yeah.
But now you can't do that with tracks, right? You've got to stay on that tempo.
But it was fun, and it was actually rehearsing, just doing something stupid in the middle of a song, rehearsing just to see if he'd catch it, and then we're off for a second because we're both cracking up laughing, and then we're back on. It's like when we rehearse with in-ears, it's like that type of thing can't happen because then we're lost. We got to start back over.
Yeah, I think it's changed the way that we practice because there's sort of like jam session and then there's rehearsal.
Yeah.
Like we have a show coming up. We have to put the ears in. Let's listen to click. Let's play through these and truly practice these songs.
Yeah.
And then there's other times where it's just like we don't do any of that and we just come down and jam on new stuff or noodle on songs or let's go back to that bridge and just play that part again. And so we kind of play in two different ways now. I think depending on the goal of the session and whether we have a show coming up that we need to prepare for.
Yeah. Well, speaking of you guys playing as a duo, we really stretched you guys for the performance that you're about to give. And to take that big cacophony of sound and just bring it down to an acoustic guitar and a cajon. What was it like trying to figure that out?
Yeah. It was challenging. And not because, I mean, it's easy enough to play on an acoustic guitar, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is like I mean, at least for me, I have this idea of what I want every song to be in my head, and it's this. It's just this wall of sound. And so it's like, well, how do I get the emotion of the song across without any of that? Like that's what was the struggle for me. Like playing it is fine. It's just like, is it gonna sound drained of its life to do it acoustically? And I hope not. Hope it sounds great. But it was a fun experience because it forced me to think about the songs in a different way. Sure. And the last week we've been running through our set list together, just like,
what songs can we do?
Yeah, what song, will this one sound okay? Will this one sound better? Will this one, like, and in my head it's always like, which one will the meaning of the song still come across the way I want it to?
Gotcha.
In an acoustic set. That's how I had to think about it. to like land on these 2 songs.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have a cajon. That's borrowed. I never played one until recently, the last week or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was just sort of, I mentioned I have a lot of sort of pop punk and like heavier, faster influences.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like a busy sort of drum beat. And a lot of our songs are that way, almost like the National, right? Where it's like a fast, busy beat over a slow melodic song.
Yes.
Like we do a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay,
Dig that.
I have one instrument here that I'm sitting on. Like, how do we make it forces you to kind of strip it down to like bass and snare almost, right? Like those 2 sounds, like the high and the low pitch. And how do we tailor this song that sounds totally different the way we play it to just like, I just have this box that I got to bang on. Like, how do we make it sound, cohesive and make sense?
Well, I'm grateful that you guys did it for sure.
Yeah.
What are the names of the songs that you guys are going to be performing for us?
Yeah, so the first one is called Stranger.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is These Kinds of Conversations.
Excellent. Well, that leads us to this portion of the show, which is sponsored to you by Indianapolis Independent Entertainment. IIE LLC aims to help local DIY artists, freelancers, and businesses within Indianapolis by establishing a network of creatives who can connect with each other to generate more paying opportunities. Their goal is to eliminate some of the intimidating barriers within the entertainment industry and expand the local art and music scenes in Indianapolis. Interested individuals can learn more about IIE by visiting their website, www.indyindient.com. That's INDYINDIEENT.com. And fill out a free application to discuss how you and IIE can redefine making it together. We will be right back after this fantastic performance from November Swim Club.
The sun is burning holes in the colors of my eyes. That's why every night when I dream, it's always in black and white. I've got this droning in my head, a relentless commotion, but it has my full attention, my sincerest devotion. Alright. So I drown out the carol of the choir on the street with this buzzing intensity that's rising from my feet to the top of my skull. It's a sharp pane of light staring down through the depths of the darkest of nights, and I scream out loud. I want to be afraid. I want to stare at the moon and watch this night fade away with the colors of the morning sucking darkness from my eyes, and the waking of the babies while their mothers gently cry. There's an itch in my head and scratching's no relief. It's like a bug has found a way to bore deep inside of me. Its legs tap against the bones all around my skull, portending the persistence of the ending of it all. The sun is burning holes through the colors of my eyes. That's why every night when I sleep I dream in black and white. I've got this droning in my head, a relentless commotion, but it has my full attention, my sincerest devotion. And I close my eyes to shield them from the sun, but the red screens, they bleed light back in by the ton, and colorless dreams just flash like a strobe, and everything I see, it's like nothing I've ever known. don't like these kinds of conversations. I can't get the feeling right in my head. I don't like these kinds of conversations. All I have is an eternal sense of dread. You can tell me what it is you think I need to hear. I'll sit right here and try to formulate a thought. You can tell me what it is you think I need to hear, and I'll reply like some underwhelming futuristic bot. 'Cause I know I messed up, but now I can't admit it. Is it too late, or can you just forget it? I don't get why they say nobody ever changes. I was never like this. Maybe it happened in stages. Put the flowers on the kitchen counter. Watch them as they slowly fade to gray. Put the flowers on the kitchen counter, a symbol of the inevitable decay. And I know I messed up, but now I can't admit it. Is it too late? Oh, just forget it. 'Cause I don't get why they say nobody ever changes. I was never like this. Maybe it just happened in stages. And you talk to me, I can't take it anymore. There's a loudness here in my head I can't ignore. We were once strangers, and strangers into friends, but lovers become strangers just before it all ends. And you talk to me, I can't take it anymore. There's a loudness here in my head I can't ignore. We were once strangers, strangers into friends, but lovers become strangers just before it all ends.
And this segment was brought to you by the Engine Room Recording Company, located in Broad Ripple Village just north of downtown Indianapolis, and they specialize in making your projects go. Podcasters, bands, audiobookers, rappers, singers, songwriters, and everyone in between, the Engine Room Recording Company has the experience, the engineers, the equipment, and the environment to fuel your projects. Check out Broad Ripple's recording studio by visiting for more information on their services, artists they've recorded, and gear they have at engineroomrecordingcompany.com. And be sure to visit their Instagram page by searching at Engine Room Recording Co. And welcome back. We have Scotch and Jay from November Swim Club. They just did a couple of great performances, totally stripped down from what they are used to doing.
Yeah.
So you guys got a special treat. And truly it was. It was an absolute treat for us to witness that and to hear that. I would say that you guys were very successful.
Thank you.
At what you were able to accomplish.
Thank you. It's a fun experience.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that guitar I have not played in years.
Oh, really? Well, you were
years.
talking beforehand that you just actually got a rubber bridge installed.
I did. Yeah, I called up Indy String Theory and said, "Can I?"
Smooth plug for Indy String Theory.
Yeah,
by
guys.
the way.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I called them up and I said, "Can you put a rubber bridge, do a rubber bridge mod on an acoustic guitar?" And they're like, "We've never been asked that." And I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "Well, we'll try it if you were willing." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm willing. Let's see what it comes out to be." And so they did it. I love it. It's on, so that guitar I'm playing is aluminum top too. So it's, it's always been very tinny and like high end.
Probably pretty bright.
It is very bright. Yes. And so this actually kind of helps bring that down a little bit, but there's no sustain, which is interesting because everything we do I just let
Right.
things ring forever.
Yeah, you do.
And then on this, I'm playing. It's like, don't. What was that?
Just dead.
But it was fun. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's a totally different switch for it, but it was a lot of
Mhm.
fun. So so that guitar I've had for like 20 years. I probably haven't played it in like 3. So it's
Oh,
nice for
wow.
it that has a new life now.
There you go.
Yeah, it's got
There
a whole
you
new
go.
purpose.
See, now what you have going for you is you're going to have, like, in the middle of your show, like an acoustic session.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, you're
yeah,
just, I don't know.
just
Maybe
really-
maybe not.
really break it down.
Yeah, just
Super
totally
cool.
really break it
It's
down.
funny. We're planning that to have like a single acoustic, not acoustic, but just take some of the
kind
effects out of one
more
song
mellow
that's a
song,
little
yeah.
more mellow,
Yeah.
that's not as heavily affected, just to
Yeah.
be a little more
Mm-hmm.
raw.
But yeah, that was an interesting experience for us playing that and just kind of preparing for that because to your point earlier, we were so heavily affected. He's got 67s now, 68 pedals on your pedal board.
167.
Seriously?
No.
Oh, okay.
It
I was
feels
like-
that way. It feels that way.
I mean,
somehow.
I saw that thing. It's huge. Like, I feel like you created that block yourself that you put it.
yeah.
I did. I
it is
built it myself.
custom
Yeah.
made.
It's not big enough, but it gets the job done.
It's always like once a month he comes over and he starts unboxing a new pedal. I'm like, what are you doing? And then it's the game of like, okay, what do I have to take off? I don't want to take off that. I don't want to get rid of that one. He's got to take something off to make room for the new one.
Oh,
right?
sure.
I'm maxed
oh,
out.
yeah.
But that's our sort of sound, right? There's so much, we hope interesting things going on to listen to that really help fill out the sound. And so to strip it down like that was, it was fun. It was a good experience. It was cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you're working on.
Mhm.
You guys have been in the process of writing album number 2.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna have the single Morristown, Indiana, dropping
Yes.
9/1.
9/1, 2 weeks. It's
What
coming.
day is that? Is that a
It's
Wednesday?
It's a Friday.
Friday.
It's a Friday.
Smart.
Yep.
New Music Friday.
New Music Friday.
Absolutely. That's right.
Get it while
Yes.
it's hot.
So, New Music Friday, September 1st, Morristown, Indiana, from November Swim Club is dropping.
Yes.
You recorded that with Garrett Lange Bartles, but you're
Yeah.
working on this next group of songs with someone else. And what has been the process like for the kind of like the writing? Because you did all the writing for the first one.
Yep.
And we touched on it a bit, like how you guys are able to kind of work together. But like, does Jay get involved in the lyric writing sometimes now, or I know that there's some back and forth with the musical direction, a lot more collaboration that way. Is there collaboration with the lyric writing? How is that going forward into the next album?
Yeah. Lyrically, no.
Other than maybe like, hey, 1 or 2 words because it will fit the rhythm of the song a little bit
Yeah.
better. Like but
Okay, gotcha.
other than that,
that,
like,
that line feels rushed. Can
Yeah.
we find a way to say it that's less syllables or whatever? You know?
Yeah.
but otherwise, no, really.
Yeah.
It's all,
Yeah,
it's
I
all
think
scotch.
I bring the lyrics, but then musically, when we are working through these songs, I think it's very like I might have a general sense of like I like this riff and I want to play this riff during some part of the song.
Yeah.
Or okay, in my head I'm singing this here, so we're gonna have to play this in the key of C or whatever, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of it. I feel like, and then we just kind of we'll sit there and we'll jam together, and I might sing the song, and he'll try to figure out, okay, what's this? Okay, how can I play to that? And like we really just kind of build out that together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really just sort of starts with lyrics, which are pretty well done, or,
Yeah,
or
usually.
pretty close,
Pretty close.
and then
Mhm.
a rough idea of a sort of melody on the guitar, and then it just sort of evolves from there.
Kinda
And
build
like
off
we
of
said
that,
earlier,
yeah.
some of them happen super fast. The Jenny's Grave happened in
Yeah, it was like a single take.
a
and we're
day,
like, this is it.
yeah, and we're like, okay, we're good.
Yep.
It feels good.
Yeah.
And other times it's like, we play it and we're like, okay, yeah, I think we like where this is going, and then the next week we'll come down and we're like, no, actually let's change directions on this. And it takes a while. It just sort
Yeah.
of every song's been a little different, I think, and each one has unique challenges
Yeah.
to solve, right?
Mhm.
And then for us also it's the whole challenge of there are 2 of us, right? So we can't do the guitar plus bass plus drums all at once. We have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
almost work in pieces, and
Yeah.
we tend to work, guitar, vocals, and drums. Like, let's hash that out, and then we'll go back and add bass and other guitar and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's been some times where we're like, I wonder what it would sound if the bass does this instead of the guitar.
Yeah.
So like we'll stop and we'll play it, we'll do it that way. Be like, oh, maybe that's better. So like let's do it that way.
Yeah.
But then we gotta come back and okay, I gotta pick up a guitar and he's gotta get back to the drums to actually work out the rest of the song.
This just reminds me when I was working on my first album, and I never played bass
Yeah.
before my first album.
Yeah.
And my producer, he said, well, I actually volunteered. I was like, I'll just play bass on this one.
Yeah.
And I'll learn it. I'll learn my songs. So I know approximately 11 songs on bass. That's about it.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not sure I remember them.
Right.
But my producer was like, "You're playing bass guitar like a lead electric guitar player." I was like, "I'm a guitar player.
Right, that's what I do.
What are you expecting from me?" So so as I've been working on my second album here at the Engine Room, as I've been working on the bass for that, so okay, we can add 2 more songs to that list. So, I've actually kept that in mind, being like, "Oh, I've come up with a nice bass line here. I wonder what that sounds like electric."
Oh yeah,
guitar,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. Neither one of us, I would say, we're not expert bassists,
bass
right?
players.
I did the bass on most of them. Scotch did it on a couple. It's literally just like, well, let's find what sounds good and we'll do it, And I think there's probably some room for improvement there. But ultimately, I think the focus of the music is on lyrics and just sort of the guitar melody. I would say the music itself, and the bass is really just there primarily to fill it out, so it doesn't sound so thin, right? When we play it live. So I think when we go into a studio and record a song, it's a little bit different, right? Like we don't want necessarily just single note bass lines just to fill out that low end.
Sure.
It's okay, that works when we play live, but how can we reimagine this a little bit?
Yeah.
We do that with Morristown, right? Where we went in.
I love that bass. I love the bass in that song.
It's a kind of a fun bass line, but we went in with something a little bit more basic, and we got in there and kind of tweaked it. And if we actually had, somebody who knew what they were doing on the bass to like add to the songs, I think that would be a little bit different. But it's been, it's more of a utility for us, right? Like we just need some low end, so let's figure it out.
I got when I'm working on bass lines myself, I constantly think of 2 particular basses. Obviously, Geddy Lee, and I'm never going to be like him. That's a given. Mike Mills from REM. There's just, they have movement.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, and that's it. Whether it's Flea, whether it's anybody who's proficient on the bass, that you're just like, oh, they have movement going on.
Sure.
And I mean, granted, they also know when to stay on a note. And let something ring, or how that plays with the drums. I don't do that, but I do like movement. I am a sucker for a moving bass.
A good
bass
line,
I mean, I think that adds an element that you don't get with like any other instrument. Right? Like bass owns that part of the song. And if you can do it right, it adds a lot of otherwise an element that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, when I listen back to Morristown now that we just recorded, I like the outro especially. All I can hear is that bass line, and I think I really love it. It's a cool bass line, and I always just sort of like hone in on that, and it does kind of tie the song together. And
especially that outro. The outro is just a wall of noise. I mean, it's so much reverb and so much delay happening that like any kind of individual instrumentation is gone, right? It's just this.
It's a wall of sound.
Yeah, it's a wall of sound.
But the bass does kind
of. But the bass cuts through, and it gives it this movement so it's not just like noise. It still is music.
Oh, exactly.
I hope we're building some anticipation for this song.
You guys are gonna love it.
So you guys have the live album out, and that features about 5 to 6 new songs. Are those songs that will appear on the second album, or those ones that can almost feel like a bit of, here's just a piece of live goodness for you guys while we have a moment in time where we have something else that we're working on?
So I think we have like all the songs for the second album. I think where we're still at and is like, how do you play the game?
Do you want to do a single drop? Do you want to do an EP
an
drop?
EP, exactly. So we're doing
right.
a single, right? And then it's like, I kind of think, well, maybe we do an EP, right? Like take that single and maybe 3 other songs and drop an EP. And then repeat a single, a second EP, and then here's the whole album.
Okay, it's
you know what I mean?
It's like a modified waterfall.
Yeah,
sure.
So that's one thing, but I don't know. It also comes down to the time and how much we can really dedicate to like doing it in that cycle. But maybe it's easier. So we're still kind of like strategizing how we're going to release the music.
So if this was like traditional album wise, you probably have enough for a full second length album. But if this was an untraditional, non-traditional, that's how people say it. You probably have enough for a couple of different releases.
A couple of EPs.
Yeah, a couple of EPs, couple of singles, couple
so.
of maybe even 3 EPs. I mean,
Yeah,
how you play the game.
Yeah, I mean, we have a dozen songs. I mean, because there's some old songs that I've written lyrically that I would like to sit down together and work on these.
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten to the time to where we can just like noodle on like 6 different songs.
Right.
Because we've been working on so it's like I got lyrics for others that like I don't have music for. So it'd be fun to like, let's work on these and see if there's anything here that we can turn into something. So I think we've got 12 songs probably done, and there's probably another like 4 that we could turn into something potentially.
Yeah, it's kind of at least for me, it's an exciting process, and it keeps it fun because I'll be setting up or doing something, getting warming up on the drums or whatever, and Scotch will play something like, "What was that? That was really cool. Can you sing that again?" And he's like, "Oh, I wrote this a long time ago. Play it. Let's work." And so we're supposed to be focused on these songs that we're working on. I'm like, no, hold on, that one's cool. Let's go back to that.
Yeah.
And so it's hard almost, like, at least for me, like, not to bring new stuff to life. So yeah, I mean, to Scotch's point, we probably have 12 songs now, but I have a feeling we'll get halfway through recording those and we'll be working on a new song. We're like, can we squeeze this in there? How do we bring this one in?
Well, are you constantly writing even as you're in the studio?
Yeah. So a friend of mine, his advice, he's a musician. His advice is like, write when you can write.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter what else is going on. If you're working on songs that are like you're recording, stop them and write. Like, because that idea is there and it's not going to be there later, And
That's a good point.
And so I take that to heart. Like, there's times where like I'll go 6 months and not have a thought to write, and then over the next week I'll write 4 songs.
Wow.
And it's just like, and it just flows. Like, the people that like have an idea for a song and like it takes months to really develop that and kind of feel out where's that song going to go.
That's me.
I can't do it. Like, if I sit down, I don't know, like, maybe it's a patience thing. I don't know what it is.
No, it's not a patience thing. It's clearly just, I mean, if for me, it's just completely different because, I mean, what happens for me is that I'll have the song and then a concept will form from that song.
Sure. Okay.
From that tune.
Okay. Yeah.
And then from that concept over time, I'm just concentrating on that concept. Like, what can that turn into? Because when I come up with concepts, I'm not thinking, this doesn't translate to a song very easily.
Yeah.
That's pretty much every single song I write. Like, who would write a song like this? Me. And so it takes time to kind of flesh that out and make it so that it's not stupid,
Sure.
or overly wordy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense.
I get overly wordy.
Yeah. Well, I think I do. I mean, we don't have a single song that's less than 5 minutes long.
They're all fairly long.
They're all long songs, and part of that is
Good for you.
a bridge that adds on an extra minute and an outro that we just want to jam on for a minute and a half.
We have some jam band like moments in songs, where the outro is a minute long, right, or the bridge is a half a minute, 40 seconds, or whatever.
The other thing is I'm wordy.
Yeah.
and we'll go to rehearse a new song, and I'll I just write it like a notepad on my phone, and I'll airdrop it to him and pull it up on the computer screen down there, and he's like, Jesus, he's like, I can't get this to fit on the screen. He's like, how many words do you need?
6 paragraphs.
And I'm like,
hold on. Lyrics.
See, when I'm writing, I actually have to put mine into columns.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll have like up to 3 columns on a page, and I'll extend the margins as far as they can go, just to get it on a single page.
Maybe we need to do it that way.
Yeah, because
I'm always like trying to scroll while we're
exactly.
Down.
I was like, I can't scroll.
Song's too long.
Yeah.
Song's too long, man. No, it's not long. But it's like Morristown.
Yeah.
Right. And when we were talking about this a minute ago, but it's chorus A. And then chorus B, which is totally different.
Yeah.
So you can't just play like repeat chorus, right? Nope, we got to have those lyrics typed out because it's a different chorus. And then the third chorus is different than the first 2 choruses. It's like part A, part B, jingled up, all mixed together. Yeah. So it's like when I type those out to read them, I have to have every word because they're different words.
You can't just put chorus.
The chorus is not the same.
Yeah. Do you get kind of foolish with your lyric writing like me, where you'll be writing a song and suddenly you have 2 bridges? Because I have 1 or 2 songs where I have 2 bridges, and I'm like, what just happened here?
That's interesting. I have moments where it's kind of like, I don't know where this fits. Like, is it a bridge?
Yeah.
Is this, can I tweak this enough to be like a pre-chorus that we do each time before the chorus, or can I not? Like, I run into that situation. So then it's like, well, maybe if I just change the way I sing it, I can make it another verse.
Right.
And that's usually what happens.
Yeah, okay.
That's usually what happens.
I was just gonna say we have a few songs actually where it's like verse, a bridge or a pre-chorus almost, and then another verse and another verse. I'm like, I think maybe I'm just realizing this, like, because you have written so many like lines to the song, you want to find a way to squeeze them in without having 5 choruses, right? Like,
right. Well, so that's my thing. Like, we have a number of songs that don't have a chorus.
Right.
Like, lyrically, there's no chorus. It's just music.
How Radiohead
it's a
of you.
musical chorus, right?
Yeah, it's just an interlude, right?
Yeah.
We'll just play like a refrain.
Yeah.
That's and that is because I have lyrics are very hard, like not hard, they're just very critical for me.
Well, no,
right?
Yes, I totally understand what you're saying.
And I have a very difficult time saying, like, here's a song, what series of words can I repeat multiple times in that song that say what that song's about?
Right.
And very often there's not.
There
not. I can't find the right words to be like, this is worth saying 3 to 4 times during a song.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just won't. We'll just play music, and I'll just let the verses speak for themselves.
Fair enough.
So,
yeah.
that happens often.
I think it works.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some songs where you're halfway through and we're still on verses.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
we're
it's
like 2.5, 3 minutes into a song. There's not a chorus.
There has not been a chorus yet. But I think
and the radio's not calling, man. They don't want to play that shit.
No, they don't want that.
No, they don't. No,
But
they don't.
again, it's like, it probably bears repeating. Like, we're doing this for us again, right?
Exactly.
Like, I don't like
Exactly.
Right.
it's cool, and that's how we want to play it. So that's how we're gonna play it.
I also like talking to like influences. Like I don't write to try to sound like a band or even like this type of music. Like other than like I like my pedals and that's gonna drive us shoegazy because I like to play them that way. Other than that, I don't think I like try to sound a certain way.
Yeah.
No.
But without a doubt, like the single biggest influence, despite all that disclaimer, is the National.
Yeah.
For me.
Oh, that's a great influence to have.
Yeah, and well, just the way he structures his songs.
Yeah.
I mean, they do the same thing. Like, there's times where like you spend 2 minutes building, and you're like, oh, here's the chorus, and it's back to a verse,
And it keeps going.
and it's just like, dang, and then it goes. It's like, oh, there's the chorus. It's finally here. It's like 2 minutes and 50 seconds into the song, we finally got the chorus.
Yeah.
And I think that influences me because I don't like to repeat the words that much, and so I just tend to delay a chorus or skip a chorus or whatever.
Yeah, there's some creative satisfaction too in not just going verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and the same for every song. Like if we can mix it up a little bit and have a double verse and then some kind of weird interlude and then another verse, and I think that's it kind of gives you freedom to do different stuff, right? Within that, you don't have to stay within a set structure.
Yeah,
and we certainly have songs that are more traditional
we do,
structure,
for sure.
I'd say, but
Yeah.
more often than not, I think we're a little different.
Yeah, and it's like rehearsing them becomes a whole nother thing because there's not like a standard of like our songs flow this way, right? So it's like, wait, this song has 4 repetitions on the outro. This one has 3. Why 3? Do 2, 4. Why are we doing 3? But we do 3. And then it's like this one has a bridge that's a double bridge. This one has a double chord. Like it's just like there's a lot of weird nuances that it's like when we're playing them, it's like, God, I really hope I get it right this time. Like, here we're on stage. Better remember.
Exactly.
It does take some time, and when Scotch brings a new song into that space, I can kind of just like feel this is the 4th time through this verse, and I start like opening up to go to a chorus, and then he goes back into another verse. I'm like, okay. And so now I'm like, eventually, once you play the songs enough and you learn it, I'm like, okay, that's the last line. I got it. We're going into the chorus now.
Yeah.
But it's 2 minutes a verse or something like that, and it takes. It's harder to get used to, and to like remember all that when you play it, right? Just because it's
it's fun.
But it does. It keeps it fresh and fun. At least for us, anyway. Hope it's fun for others too.
No, sure, no. Well, we've come to the point of the show where we're at the end. But is there anything that we have missed that you guys feel like you want to address? I always want to give that one last opportunity. Also, shout out real quick to your wife, Christy.
Yeah, Christy Swingo.
Yes. Photography.
I can shout out her business. Another plug.
Yes. But she did the artwork for Stationary Motion, correct?
Yeah, so she did the photo for that. And then we had some friends, Quiet Strength Design, which is another great local business to check out, that did the actual design onto the album cover and designed the back of the cover for me, or the back of the album. Yeah. But yeah, my wife does the photos. She does a lot of our promo photos. All of our promo photos she's done.
They look fantastic.
She's got a good clientele of musicians around town. She just did some artwork for a band that had a release party this past weekend, and
cool.
like she came home with like album of like her artwork on the album, which is just so rewarding. I think for her, to have like, and they did poster of her artwork. It's just like real physical. It's everything's so digital now,
I know.
But to have like a real physical copy, I think was cool for her.
That is cool.
She's also she's fantastic, but especially like live music photography is so hard. You're in a dark room with different colored lights flashing in your face, and she is incredible at just capturing that. So we're fortunate enough to have that connection that we can leverage that for shows and get some great photography and video of our shows. But
very cool.
Yeah, every time we book a show, I'm like, hey, will you? And she's
like, can you shoot some photos?
One time I just want to like watch you perform. And I'm like, no, I get that, but I also want some photos.
I want something to look really nice.
So maybe just like a couple songs, and then you can enjoy the rest of the set.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Scott Swango, Jay Druba from November Swim Club. You guys are awesome. Morristown, Indiana is the next single dropping from you guys. September 1st.
Yep.
Check it out. Make sure I got the right button here. Check it out. It'll be streaming everywhere, correct?
Yeah, it's
Spotify,
all the places.
All the places.
All the places.
Release Friday. Guys,
pre-save.
Pre-save.
Go
Pre-save.
Please.
Oh my goodness.
Please just pre-save.
You don't even have to listen to it when it comes out.
Just pre-save it.
Yeah, just pre-save it.
Throw it on a playlist.
Yeah.
And then we're good.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're
look,
best friends.
Yeah, totally.
We're all slaves to the algorithm, right?
Oh my gosh,
that's how it
are
works.
we?
You share it, you add it to a playlist, and next thing you know, it gets some traction. So
That's right.
Yeah, it gets a few streams after that.
Yeah.
Well, be on the lookout for that. September 1st, Morristown, Indiana, from November Swim Club. Next week, we'll be having Jess Jones as our guest. So be on the lookout for that. For Scotch, Jay, I'm Josh. Thank you for tuning in this week, and we'll be back again next week. So long.